Hello, students, and welcome to MSBA 305. My name is Heinz Schwartz. I'm an adjunct professor at GGU University, and I teach classes in business intelligence since 2009. The class, of course, has changed many times because technology changes, and this class has always been a mix of learning and doing, because tacit learning is the best way of learning, meaning you not only read things about business intelligence, you will also perform business intelligence. So you will have a practical knowledge about what business intelligence means, how to create a dashboard, how to do data analysis of a data set, etc., etc. So in this welcome video, I will walk you through the class, give you an overview, and also talk about week one, but also assignments going forward. So before we jump into the slides and the syllabus, let me just give you an overview. What is business intelligence at its core? Business intelligence is about helping businesses to make better data-driven decisions. And in order to do that, you take the data from operational systems, for example, an ERP system, enterprise resource planning system, a warehouse system, supply chain system, cash registers, online sales tool, whatever it might be. You take data from these operational systems, you put it through a data integration process. This is traditionally called extraction, transformation, and load. But overall, it's a data integration process where the data is cleansed, brought into consistent formatting, and then uploaded into some sort of data store. It can be as simple as an Excel spreadsheet. It can be a data mart, data warehouse. It can be a lot of front-end tools like Power BI have data stores as well. So you can upload the data into a front-end tool, and then you use a front-end tool like Power BI, Tableau, MicroStrategy, and there's a myriad of other front-end tools with which you can then process the data, analyze the data, create visual representation charts, connect the charts, create a dashboard, and tell the data story. And really the role of the data analyst is to understand what data is needed by the business. So anytime you're talking about business intelligence, it's driven by a business use case. And the business use case determines what data do you need and how do you analyze the data. And that's what we will do in this class. So let me share my screen and I will walk you through the syllabus. Okay, so I hope you can see the screen now. If you scroll right to the end of the syllabus, you will see what we do in each week. In week one, we talk about chapters 1, 4, and 8. As you will see, this is about dimensional modeling. And you will build a dimensional model. And this is the first step. So in the practical exercise, the first thing that we will do is you will build an entity relationship model and a relational schema. This is how operational systems work. Operational systems are based on relational databases in many cases, and operational systems require that these databases are in Boy's Code normal form and have ACID compatibility. So they follow the entity relationship model and relational schema. That's our data sources. So you understand the difference between those systems and analytical systems. You will first, in hands-on assignment number 1, you will create an entity relationship model and relational schema. I suggest you use ERD Plus to do that. And then in chapter 8 and chapter 9, you will read also about dimensional modeling. And you will then, in week 3, create a dimensional model out of the same data set. You will see that the dimensional model is really organizing the data in different dimensions, for example, time or region, so that it is more organized for the way that a business would try to analyze the data. So with dimensional modeling, we made the first step from operational data to analytical data. Once the data is in, we have it and we have a dimensional model, we can understand how we organize the data for data analysis. And then we start to get some practical experience in week 4. You will use a front-end tool like Power BI or MicroStrategy. You can use either of these two tools. Microsoft Power BI obviously is available for the PC with Microsoft Windows operating system and for Macs. And MicroStrategy, I'm sorry, and it's not available for Macs. MicroStrategy is available for Macs and for PCs. So you have the choice if you use Power BI or MicroStrategy. The programs work very similar. You load the data. It looks very much like an Excel spreadsheet. You have to do some data integration, some data cleansing. There is one mistake in the data. You will see that very quickly. There's one misformatted date or several misformatted dates. So you have to correct that error. And then you can start working with the data. In the first exercise, you will just build a static dashboard with 4 panels. And then in the next week, we will make that an interactive dashboard using the exact same tools. And then finally, in week 7, we will turn that interactive dashboard into a real dashboard with KPIs, key performance indicators. So it's a multi-step process. We will work with the same data set. You can use the same tool to do that, and you will get really a good working knowledge of how to create a dashboard, make it interactive, and add some KPIs, key performance indicators, to it. So this is already 5 of the hands-on assignments that you will work with in this class. Then hands-on assignment number 6 is a data integration exercise. I will ask you to download 2 data sets from a government website, and you will see that the data that you need to combine the data from both data sets to answer a simple question. The question is drug use in the United States associated with how many people have health insurance? That's the question. And you take these 2 data sets, they're provided by the government, and you have to integrate the data sets to answer the question. And you will see is it's not super simple because the data sets have different timelines. And that's a very common problem in the real world. Sometimes when you use data, the data doesn't readily match. So you have to think about how you can modify the data so that you can bring it together and put it into your dimensional model and analyze it. So that's a problem that you will face in the real world all the time. Here, you can solve this problem. I have a lecture on the different methods that you can use. There's no right or wrong answer. You integrate the data and then you answer the questions. And that's hands-on assignment number 6. And then finally, we will build a model using Excel. So for the last 2 exercises, we use Excel. For the data integration, we use Excel. And for the model building, we also use Excel. This is a what-if analysis. So you will build a simple model, used car sales model, and then you will do some simple what-if analysis with this model. And that's it in terms of the hands-on assignments. Throughout the class, you will also work on the big assignment, which is due at the end of the semester. And in order to help you and guide you with this assignment, I have several milestones. You will see this also here in the assignments. So we have milestone 1 due in week 4. The milestone 1 is basically where you outline the business problem that you're trying to solve in the data set. So as I said in the introduction, what business intelligence is you are using data to make business decisions. So everything we do in business analytics is driven by a business use case. In this particular case, we have to reverse engineer it a little bit because you will go out and find a data set. There's many places that provide free data sets. For example, Kaggle is a good source for this, but there might be others. And some of you, I read your introductions, and some of you might have some ideas and might have some data sets from their work that they can use. And that would be great that if you have your own data set that you want to study and analyze as part of this assignment. But what I want you to do in the first milestone is think about a business case. What would be the business user that would use the data analysis? So for example, there's a data set in Kaggle about employee retention. It's basically a data set, an HR data set. Many students have picked that data set in the past. It has several hundred employees that left the company, and you want to use that data set to analyze what are the reasons. Maybe you can find out some early predictors why somebody might leave the company, why they would quit. So who would be the person who would use a data set like that? It would be somebody in HR who wants to identify people that are at risk and maybe flag them to their managers. And if the managers decide, oh no, this is a person that is really critical, we want to keep them, there might be some actions that they can do. By the way, this is a very real problem right now. I work in the healthcare space, and nurse retention is a huge problem right now. So there are real applications in the real world that do exactly that. They see what are early predictors for people that might quit, and then you can both summarily try to do something or individually for people that you don't want to lose, you can do something. So that would be one example, but there are many data sets out there, but you have to think about what the business use case would be, because that will guide you in developing the dashboard and developing the data analysis. And in milestone 1, what you will do is you will describe the business use case and you will describe the data set, and I will give you some feedback. Sometimes students are overly ambitious, and then I'll give you feedback and say maybe your goal is too ambitious. Try to boil it down to something that is more manageable. And so that would be feedback that I can give you, and that's why we're doing this already in week 4, because if you already pick a data set early on, then everything that we do in the class, building dashboards, doing data integration, et cetera, you can leverage that and utilize that as you develop the project throughout the class. The second milestone is due in week 8, and this is the literature review. The literature review is an exercise where you find a quality literature that deals with a different topic. So going back to the example that I used before, if your data set is the employee retention data set, you will find articles where people did an analysis of HR data and retention data, and there are many articles about this on the internet that you can find and that are peer-reviewed. And what you will look for is, what are usually predictor variables? For example, if people take a lot of time off or they don't take a lot of time off, if they haven't gotten a raise or if they have gotten a raise, so on and so forth. So then you can analyze, when you find an article like that, you can apply that to your data set, and you can find that you can analyze if you have the important variables in your data set. On the retail side, for example, what you will find is one of the predictors for retail sales can be weather. People like to go shopping, for example, when it's rainy weather. Could be a predictor for higher sales, and could be a predictor for, people buying soup and hot cocoa or something like that. So if weather is a predictor, or unemployment rate, or inflation rate are predictors for retail sales, and you have a retail data set, then maybe you have to augment your data set and find matching data. For example, what is the GDP data? What is the unemployment data that matches the timeline of your retail data set? So you could make any analysis, any observations based on these important variables. So that's the purpose of the literature review. You analyze your data set, you find articles where people have had similar problems before, and you apply that to your data set and to your problem. Find 5 sources and analyze these sources, summarize these sources, and apply them to your data set. That's milestone number 2. And then milestone number 3 is a chapter outline. This is due in week 12. In the chapter outline, you write a few paragraphs about each chapter in your final paper. And that's a final check for you and I to synchronize on what your paper will be about. If you follow the APA style and the APA formatting, the paper should have an introduction. You should have a chapter where you describe the data set. Then you should have the literature review that does what I just talked about on the literature review. then you should do the data integration and describe the data integration that you do, the dimensional modeling. And then you have the main part where you do the data analysis. Maybe you develop a dashboard and relate the dashboard and the functionality of the dashboard back to the business case. Remember, that's what you do already in milestone 1. You think about the business case. So the business user, how would the business user use the dashboard? How is this related to the business case? So, you know, if I'm in HR, I'm looking at the data and I see key performance indicators. I see some ways to identify people who are at risk of leaving the company or whatever it might be in your data set that you want to provide as a functionality for the business user. I'll provide you feedback, and then the final paper is due in week 14. And in week 15, we have a discussion forum where you present your findings, the findings of your work to your peers. We do that online. And I know this class is asynchronous, but if you guys want to, we can definitely make a synchronous session and give you a chance to present the outcomes of your work to the other students. So a lot of work throughout the semester goes into this final paper, and it's a big part of the grade, but it will give you a great opportunity to apply everything that we discuss, everything that you learn in this class in a practical exercise, in a dashboard, in a paper, and when you apply later somewhere, you can show this off. You can show this dashboard. You can show this as an example of your skill and your ability to organize data and to analyze data. So you not only took a class in business intelligence, you know how to build a dashboard and you know how to analyze data, and that's really my purpose. Okay. We also have a midterm exam. As you can see here, the midterm exam is in week 8, and we have a final exam, which is in week 15. And we have pretty much every week a discussion that is graded. And the way the discussion is graded is you post an initial post by Thursday before midnight, and you get up to 18 points for that. And then between Friday and Saturday, you go back and you see the posts of your fellow students. You read them and you comment on them. And if you pick 1 or 2, you will get points for that. And that's how you can earn your 20 points. How do I get the 18 points in the discussion? If you submit a well-substantiated, well-thought-out response to my question, if you find a source, if you find an article, if you find something to back up your argument, and you provide the source, you will get the full points. You get the 18 points. And then again, if you come back and respond, we call this a discussion. It is a cyber class, but I want to give you the experience of interacting with other students, and that's what we do with a weekly discussion. Okay. So now let me share the weekly presentation with you. Okay. So this is a textbook, Business Intelligence Guidebook. The whole class is built on this textbook. I really like Rick Sherman and Rick Sherman's book. Rick Sherman is like me, a practitioner. I've been in the industry for 30 years. I'm not a professional academic. I teach at Golden Gate University as an adjunct professor. And so does Rick Sherman. He's also an adjunct professor. But in my real job, in my day job, I work at a company, at an IT company that makes ERP systems. In my particular case, for healthcare organizations. And we practically work on solutions. We work on BI solutions, and we provide the data, both the ERP and the analysis, the analytics, to our clients, which are large hospital systems. Rick Sherman is also in the business. He's a practitioner, and he wrote this book really as a guidebook from a practitioner's perspective, not only from an academic's perspective. And that's why I like the book and built the class around it. So it's really important that you get this book. I already talked about it. We have the weekly assignments, quizzes, and discussions. We have the hands-on assignments, and I went over all of the hands-on assignments. We have the term paper with the different milestones. I went over all of those. And we have the midterm and final exam, and I went over that as well. Okay, so first week, we jump right into it, and you will see here data integration. I talked about data integration already. There's a hands-on assignment about data integration. You see here terms like ETL and ELT, extraction, transformation, load, extraction, load, transform. We'll talk about the difference. Data profiling, data quality, metadata, master data management. These are all terms under this umbrella data integration. And again, data comes from the source systems. It goes through the data integration. It goes to data warehousing. That's where you have things like data warehouse, data marts, OLAP cubes, etc. And then we have a front end where you present and analyze the information. So this is really what this class is about. This is what business intelligence is about. You take the source data, we do the data integration, we put it somewhere in a data warehouse, data mart, in a staging area, whatever, and then we perform business intelligence on it with reports, dashboards, data visualization, OLAP. OLAP is both a front-end tool. OLAP cubes can be, presented like in Excel, for example, scorecards, etc., etc. So different ways to present the data. So that's really the conceptual framework, and you will see in the book a myriad of graphical representations that are all an iteration on the same theme. So the same theme where we peel the onion, go to different layers. It's always the same concept. There are source systems, which are the operational systems that generate the data. We do the data integration, the extraction, transformation, and load, put it into some data store, and then we analyze it. So that's really very conceptual. The operational systems are also called sometimes the systems of record, and the analytical systems, the systems of analysis. So as I told you, myriad of visualizations to show the same thing. So this is another way to represent it. The systems of record, this is the source system. Then the systems of integration, this is where the data integration happens. The systems of analytics, This is where you store the data and analyze the data, and then the front end. This is where the user interface is. This is like your Microsoft Power BI or Tableau or SAS or whatever front-end tool you might use. And again, that's another way to show the same thing. Again, the book is full of that. In Chapter 8, we will get to dimensional modeling, and you will see that both this week and next week when we get to Chapter 9. This is really important. You should read this carefully because that's part of the relationship, and you see here the difference between the entity relationship model. This is the first hands-on assignment, and then converting that into a dimensional model where you have the fact table. For example, the product is the fact here, and you have the different dimensions. For example, transaction history, inventory, different dimensions. And this is really guided by the business case. The business case that determines how you want to analyze the data. For example, if you have a sales table, you have a dimension, who are the customers that buy something, right? There might be several analyses. Do you have customers that buy a lot, that have multiple sales, or customers that only buy one time? Size of customers that buy a lot, small customers, large customers, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a whole area that you want to analyze about the customer. The item that you sell, which items did you sell? There's a time dimension, because you want the sales data by week, by month, quarter, year, et cetera, et cetera. There's a regional component, which store, which region was something sold in, et cetera, et cetera. So that's really what dimensional modeling is, where you now reorganize the data along the dimensions that you will use for analysis. And again, Chapter 8 goes into great detail about this. And that will help you creating the dimensional model in the second hands-on assignment. So here's another way. You have here the entity relationship model and relational schema, and then you see how this is turned into a fact table and dimensional model. Dimensional models, by the way, if you look this up, are also often called star schemas. So there's the relational schema and the star schema. Relational schema is for operational systems and relational databases. Star schema is for the data warehouse. Okay, so again, this is all in your book, and Chapter 8 really helps you to prepare you for the second hands-on assignment, where you turn the entity relationship model into a dimensional model. So the first hands-on assignment, which will be due next week, I gave you 1 week slack to get the book, get ready, get organized, but then we will have assignments due every week after that. So for just first week, a little bit of slack. First hands-on assignment is you create the entity relationship model and relational schema. Chapter 8 of the book is your guide here, and you can use ERD Plus. You can either download and install it, or you can just use the online version if you have a Mac of ERD Plus. The discussion this week is just the student introduction. There's no graded discussion. I mean, I grade the student introduction, but it's basically pass or fail. If you don't do this introduction, you miss 10 points. And next week, we start with the weekly discussions, with the real discussions. And then this week you also have a quiz, which is about chapters 1, 4, and 8 of the book. All right, so that was an overview of the class, the first week, which gets you started and gets you prepared for the next weeks. If you have any questions, email me or post a question in the question and answer form. And as I said in the announcement yesterday, I will see if there's a desire to have a synchronous class. I'm absolutely happy to host one. And we certainly should consider to do a synchronous class in week 15, so you get a chance to present the work that you did throughout the semester. Okay, I hope that was a good overview. Again, welcome to the class. I'm excited. I saw your resumes. I think many of you come into the class motivated and should be a fun class. So hope you will enjoy it, and I hope you will take something out of this class and get a practical knowledge of how to use data analysis, how to make it something that you really know how to use and leverage. So thank you, and I see you in the class.